Hi, I'm Dr. Navarro. I work with young adults who are transitioning from high school and along with their families to help make the transition into the adult world the most effective one possible. I'm also a parent of a young adult who is neurodiverse, and I've helped them transition from high school into the adult world successfully. This video is the first in a series of 3 videos where I go through my personal experience helping a neurodiverse young adult transition through middle school to high school and to college. Most of what I thought I understood about ADHD back in middle school was wrong. And the problem wasn't that my young adult wasn't capable. It was that I was interpreting what I was seeing the wrong way. There were moments where it looked like she just wasn't trying. Things weren't getting done, routines weren't sticking, and from the outside it could easily look like it was just behavior that she just didn't care. But living through it day to day, you start to realize that some things don't add up, and it's not really defiance, it's something else. During middle school, my young adult was very timid, very anxious, socially unsure. They had a hard time connecting with peers. Even whenever they wanted to engage, it didn't really come naturally. And at home, almost everything required support. Organization, follow through, routines. None of that was happening independently yet. So while other kids seemed like they were starting to figure those things out, we were still very much in the phase of building the foundation. What changed everything for me was realizing that I wasn't dealing with a motivation problem. I was dealing with a systems problem. Once I understood that, then my role shifted. I stopped expecting everything just to click and started to help build structure around things that my young adult could manage. And looking back now, there were a handful of things during those middle school years that I think most parents misunderstand or completely overlook. Not because they don't care, but it's just easy to misread. It's easy to not really see what's happening. So in this video, we're going to talk about some of the big ones, the things that really shaped what came after. Number 1, the big one. What looks like defiance is often just executive function breakdown. So there are so many moments early on where it looks like your young adult just isn't trying. Assignments aren't getting done. Things aren't being followed through on. And from the outside, it could easily be labeled as avoidance or lack of effort. But living with it day to day, you start to see a pattern. And the young adult doesn't necessarily push back. They just get stuck. And a lot of times they don't know how to start. They don't know how to organize, how to carry something through all the way. Once I understood that, it changed how I responded. Instead of correcting behavior, I helped starting build supports around the process itself. It requires more patience than I naturally had at the time, but it was a constant reminder to myself that this wasn't unwillingness. It was about capacity to be able to focus while we're developing these skills. Number 2, organization doesn't happen without a system built around it. I had let go of the idea that my young adult was just going to figure it out, learn how to be organized. That would never happen on its own. What did work was building structure around them in a way that was intentional. Calendars, checklists, reminders on the phone, sitting down regularly to review what's coming up, looking for an app that would be helpful. Even during the summer, we kept some level of structure in place so everything didn't fall apart whenever school came back around. And it wasn't a one-time setup either. These systems had to be maintained, adjusted, reinforced over and over and over again. Organization wasn't something that they just processed internally at that stage. It was something that we created externally, and then we slowly helped them learn how to use it. Number 3, social struggles don't stay social. They help shape the person's identity. What stood out to me wasn't just that she was having difficulty socially, but it was how quickly that it started to affect how she saw herself. And our young adult knew that they were different. She could see that other kids seemed to connect more easily. And she didn't interpret that neutrally. She internalized it. There were moments where she just assumed that others were just naturally better, more capable. They were more accepted. And that belief started to take hold and kind of shape how she saw herself, not in just social situations, but also her personal identity. And it started to influence effort, confidence, willingness to try. You realize pretty quickly that you're not just helping your child navigate friendships, you're helping them protect themselves during a stage where they're still forming their self-identity. So these types of things included for us joining groups together, going on outings with scouts together, because those were opportunities to learn how to interact with other people socially and to be able to form a personal identity that was healthy. Number 4, avoidance protects in the moment, exposure builds capacity. So there were plenty of times where our young adult resisted the very environments that she needed to be in the most. Social settings, group activities, anything that required interactions or stepping outside a comfort zone. And as a parent, it's easy to want to protect your child from that type of discomfort, but over time it became clear that avoiding those situations was not helping. It was limiting. So we made intentional choices to keep our young adult involved. Drama, beta club, trips, community activities, not because she was naturally drawn to them, but because those environments created the opportunities for growth, and she wouldn't get those otherwise. And what I noticed was that over time, even though it was uncomfortable in the moment, those experiences slowly built confidence, skills, and connections in a way that staying comfortable never would have. Number 5, independence is not expected in middle school. It is built. Looking back, there's a misconception that middle school is where kids should start to become independent. Definitely the teachers reinforce that. But that wasn't our reality at all. At that stage, our young adults' routines were still very much driven by us. Self-care, organization, daily responsibilities. All of it required some prompting, some structure, some follow-through. We focused on, instead, a gradual release approach. First off, showing them what to do, and then doing it with them, and then slowly stepping back. And as they started to understand the process, they got more independence. And even then, there were times when we had to step back in and reinforce it all over again, because independence didn't just suddenly appear. It was something that we built piece by piece by piece over time, knowing that we're putting it in place and that she would eventually rely on us more later on if needed. A great example of this is whenever we were working with her on getting acclimated to her new schedule and also to the building. So whenever they did the open house for middle school, I actually went and printed a diagram of the school, and we found one that had the teachers' names all on the different rooms. And so we took that particular printout and the schedule, and we highlighted where every single class was. And we also highlighted where our locker was. And so we practiced going through the entire schedule for the day, going from the locker to the class, back to the locker, to the class, back to the locker, to the lunchroom, back to the locker, to the next class, so on and so forth. We practiced it. First off, I did it myself, showed her how to do it. And then we did it together. And we gave her the schedule and the map, and she had to go figure it out, and we followed with her. And then we just stayed at the locker, and we gave her a chance to go and do it on her own and really get an idea of the timing that it took to open her locker, get her supplies, get to the classroom, come back, so on and so forth. That was one of the examples that really stuck in my mind as something that we did gradually together, and over time that was something that she ended up having to own herself in order to be successful in that environment. Whenever I look back at our experience in middle school, what stands out to me the most is we weren't trying to fix isolated problems. We were trying to build something that didn't exist yet. We were building an entire system. We were helping shape an identity. We were helping create exposure. And slowly, piece by piece, we built the foundation for independence at that particular stage. But the challenge is, whenever you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see clear where your child actually is. Because some things feel like they're working, some things feel like they're falling apart, and a lot of it depends on the environment, the context that you're looking at. And that's exactly why I decided that we needed to step back and ask a simple question. Where are we really right now? Not just academically, but also across things that matter for long-term independence. Things like how much structure does our young adults still need? What parts can they handle on their own? And whenever it comes to follow-through, how do they see themselves? How do they respond to things whenever they get uncomfortable? Because those are things that don't show up in grades, but they determine what happens next. And in part, that's what led me to develop the transition-focused mindset readiness assessment. It's not a test. It's a way to get some clarity, to understand what's already in place, what still needs to be built, and where your focus actually needs to go next. Because middle school, it wasn't just about proving independence. It's really about building foundations for the future. And if you don't know where the foundation stands, it's really hard to know what to do next.